Hey, hey, people, Seth here. Okay, we're just going to see if I can't pop chat out. Pop out chat. That's where that's gonna go. That's gonna go right up there. And I'm gonna throw chat down right in the middle. So let me finish getting my battle station all up and ready, and thank you for tuning in if you are tuning in. This is the first live stream that I would like to do uh, and an update slash working on the various projects that I have. I routinely have like 4 or 5 projects all the time that I'm working with, and a uh, I work up on them up to a point, and then they stop getting work done because I just don't go back and check up on them again. Sorry if there's a little bit of noise. I can readjust the mics as needed. Alright, so this project I don't have a name for yet. It's just an action RPG project. I've thought over the years, I've distilled this idea of an action RPG. I want it to be in the style of a Link to the Past type of a game, where it's less about like a Dark Souls-ish combat or a modern ARPG, and a little bit more of a fusion of old ARPG mixed with perhaps Diablo or um, modern ARPG uh, loot, except without all of the random modifiers, endless grinding type stuff. I want to take more of an approach of like an old EverQuest approach, where if you go to fight a certain type of enemy, you are reliably going to receive their type of armor or weapon or whatnot. Except when it comes to this loot, I'm less interested in just um, numerical upgrades. There will be some of that, um, but I'm less interested in just straight numerical upgrade system and more about a system of items that change the way you play. I think it's much more interesting to get a set of armor or robe or an item that adds an effect to your abilities that changes how you then play the game. Say Um, say you gain a trinket of some type or little extra charm that adds um, damage over time to your attacks that stacks up to a couple times. You can then change how you play by making sure that you stack that damage up, and then you learn how long that damage over time lasts, how much damage that damage over time will do against certain enemies, and oh, I can leave this alone. I can worry more about my maneuverability, and I can worry about these other enemies over here type thing. Uh, so, um, it being more in line with um, an older ARPG, at some point, one of the um, one of the live streams that I'll do will be us creating the landmass um, in a mapping program so that we can take that information and then move forward with it and actually determining how we're going to set up levels and whatnot. And as I said, I want to make it similar, um, probably a little bit bigger of a land mass than the original, um, like it's not the original Zelda, but the Link to the Past. I want it to be bigger than Link to the Past, but I don't want it to be so big that it just has areas that serve no purpose. Um, and I was thinking in the realm of it being a large like island, something like in the Caribbeans or something, where there are like these little island nations that are just on islands that are big enough to actually form a nation and society on, but you don't have a whole continent to worry about, like in modern MMOs. And the idea of keeping it as an island will help us um, section off like expansion content should expansion content be made, because then you can say, oh well, this is an island over on this is a little smaller offshoot island that is close to this, and you can have specifically themed islands. Like this is a island that is basically just a little volcano, and now you're in the fire ashlands island, or you're in the like total jungle island, or here for some reason the weather is fucking crazy here. Here's a mountain island where everything's cold and shit. Okay, so ARPG. Let's see, what's the right wording for this? A an odd mixture of Zelda, Link to the Past, Diablo, and EverQuest. I think that's self-descriptory enough. Um, it really isn't, but this is more about the flavor of the idea and kind of like more of a little bit of a guiding principle. Um, so I wanted to go over the my thoughts for playable characters, starting right out the gate. Um, start with uh, for for some reason, the name of Wugwugs came to my mind. Frog people. Probably because of, what is it? Dungeons and Dragons Bullywugs. I've always liked them. I've I was able to use them in some pretty interesting, cool encounters. Now this isn't a bullywug. This is a slod, a green slod, but it's more of the thematic idea that I'm going for with this race. All right, and their play style is going to be something of a shaman slash necromancer. Um, their primary stuff will be, you know, summoning pets, um, healer, buffers, um, and life stealing. Kind of a sanguimancy type of thing, blood magic. Um, blood magic. Okay, so we have the Wugwugs, and then Lamia, which are snake people. Um, and back on the Wugwugs for a second, just that's the main reason why I chose this image. It's an image of a frog type, toad type person. They've got some magic looking gear. They look like a caster. They have a lot of death type um, thematical cues on them, um, and they just give off that weird, creepy vibe that I really want. And then for the Lamias, the uh, the main thought that I like about uh, these are I want it to be a little bit more of this type that has the like full snake. I'm not so hot on the, you know, partial lady, partial snake. Um, I much more like the idea of the um, you know, even though like a bit more of a human torso ending in a snake head, just to kind of further remove them from um, I almost wanted to say fetishization, but it's more of just further remove them out of the uncanny valley and push them further into the predatory role, because this character isn't going to end up being like the enchantress type. Um, the illusionist kind of thing. It's not going to be using its wiles, it's going to be using its just raw, natural, predatory power as a gameplay. So this is more of a don't really want to say like poison mage, but they're going to be using a lot of poison, damage over time stuff. Um, um, they're going to be primarily melee based, maybe like a poison blast slash spit. Um, and then the idea that maybe give them a wyvern as a pet. I didn't prepare a did not prepare a picture of a wyvern, but I can whip one up really fast. And this is more of the kind of old school wyvern um, that has the poison barbed tail, and um, it would be about a creature that is reptile-ish and also window capture. Yeah, is reptile-ish, has the barbed tail. Would be a bit of a tanky pet, so that the wyvern play style could, um, if you chose the pet, wouldn't necessarily need to worry about hit points and survivability as much. Um, might be a little bit more about flanking what your pet aggroes. Let's remove that. Okay. Oh, and the one thing that I did want to keep here, um, or add here, is a tail whip attack, because I think it'd be super awesome to have a snake person like have an animation where until you know what the animation is, it looks like they're just turning around to leave, and they just turn around and just spin all that body weight and leverage into their tail to just smack you away. I think that's just a really cool idea. Okay. Oh, I totally forgot to prepare. Um, totally forgot to prepare the man, that sucks. I'm beating myself up now. Images for the next class, but I found some that can serve, or next character, I found some that can serve um, Umbra or Shadow people. Um, this was this is like a teleportation based class that deals ranged nuke spells. And deals with snaring things. So they're going to be a lot more about keeping things from running away, keeping things from getting close to the group. There was there's some there's some parts of me that want to work in a melee build to it, but I think there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are six classes, and 3 of them are already primarily melee. So I think to add on or can specialize to become melee. So I think adding that option on here kind of upsets the balance a little bit, and would keep the class from being more focused. Okay, and then no, those are hyena people. I want to do a lot of. I want to focus them mostly around spear usage. Um, Throwing as their main weapons, throwing spears, um, using traps, rushing, sneaking, um, maybe bleeds, um, sneak attacks. Give them enough of a range where they can, you know, specialize into either a fun stealth build that gets up behind someone and just rams their spear into the back of them and for massive damage, or can back up if you have time to prepare to pull monsters into traps that you set up. Um, like a well prepared ranger might be able to solo things that some of the other character classes might not be able to because of the use of traps and ranged options, while also um, having another path they can take for powerful melee options. Uh, they are pretty much ranger rogues in classic RPG terms. Uh, I would really love the higher leveled um, characters to, or null characters, to look really similar to this, maybe a little bit more embellishment or flair, minus the weird Sauron nunchucks. Um, just, I feel like that's a really strong thematic look that we don't see very often. Boop. Next are Oni, which those are Japanese demon ogres. Um, I have come across a couple different legends about these guys that I think is interesting. That is something that we can build off thematically for their powers, and where we want them to be. These guys love fighting. They're huge. They're powerful. An um, old legend that I had seen claimed that their hair was made of fire, which I thought was interesting because I've seen a couple depictions of them like that. But the more modern depiction, modern, give or take a couple hundred years, is that they just have wild, crazy, unkempt hair, which I think is a lot. Which you can see how that translates. Hair like fire, wild, unkempt, like you can't tame, untamable hair translates over to you know literally hair from being fire to just a crazy woodsman looking dude. And then I thought it would be interesting to tie that fire element back into them by making them a little bit sun-based. Um, in a previous RPG project that I might make a video on, I had a class called the Corona, which are light-based warriors. They're kind of paladin-esque, but they're not fully paladins. They don't worship a god. They don't derive their power from worshiping or being given, divine right. Um, just because I don't, I think that's a little. I don't think every fantasy setting needs to deal with deities. Okay, so um, the thing that I really enjoyed about this class, though, um, that I created, was that they had a resummonable um, bulwark of like hard light, which I guess in retrospect isn't really that unique anymore, and will probably get called a Reinhardt clone from Overwatch, um, because I mean it's pretty similar. But laser shields have been around for freaking ever, um, and I like laser shields, so a bulwark light shield that they can hold up to block attacks, projectile attacks, maybe a little bit bigger than their normal character's hitbox, um, so that they can create a little bit of space for um, their allies as well. And then they would primarily deal in stuns. They're like these guys are the dedicated tanks of the game. Everyone else is usually some flavor of dealing damage, with the exclusion of the Wugwugs, which are those are those are like definitely the dedicated healers. I'm sure other people will have other ways of healing, and if not, there's always healing potions. But those um, those couple roles really need to be like clearly defined, especially when there's such a low amount of um, such a low character pool to pull from to begin with. Everyone needs to have really um, well defined thematic looks, playstyle, um, and effects on the battlefield. And these guys are definitely melee based. You can see that the two of the guys on the oh no, all right, because I don't have it looking at my desktop. You can see two of the Oni, the furthest left blue, and the and on the top image, and the furthest left red on the bottom image. Both have these spiked clubs. There are a couple different versions of spiked clubs from Japan. I really loved them to begin with, like outside of this whole fantasy thing, like RPG aspect of them. I really loved the look and use of those clubs in historical combat. I think it was pretty badass and cool, actually. So I would like to make that their main weapon type. So, like, that's what these guys are going to be swinging around. When they're not holding up their shield and blasting out, like, light pulses and um, abilities like that, they're going to be swinging around this big old spiked club. Would probably won't do as much damage overall. Um, as some of the other classes can do, but we'll probably go through armor because the whole point of those spikes is to lower the surface area that all of the pressure of the weapon is putting on there, which is how you combat armor. You increase the pounds per square inch that you're applying to them so that it dents the armor and rends it and sunders it and makes it unusable. Let's see here. And I wanted to, since they are the dedicated tanks and they're going to be holding the front line, I wanted to give them auras to help out other characters in the front line um, and or themselves. And the last one is harpies. And these are bird gals or people, depending on the world that you're in. I think they're going to be dedicated females. I was thinking about making all of the character models female. I don't know. Uh, usually, usually like female character models better. Um, you can put more flair into them most of the time. Most male models end up coming out looking really samey and junkish. So it's all depends on concept art that we'll do later. What I like at the time, basically. Um, so the idea for the harpies is that they would be witches. They will be focused on debuffing enemies, crowd controlling enemies. Some of the other characters, like snaring, trapping, knockback, those are soft crowd control. Hard crowd control is a completely different, like, just a completely different game. Or mechanically when you're talking about these games because um, with soft crowd control you have to learn to kite um, and whatnot, and depending on the enemy type, the soft crowd control may not really do much because if you try to snare a ranged enemy, they don't care. They're just gonna keep shooting you. If you knock back a like a blinking enemy, they're just gonna or like rush down type of enemy that's really fast. They're just gonna like get back to you before you can finish your animation. So there are some enemies where you just need to like to just have hard crowd control on, where they're just taken out of the fight. Now those will be the hard crowd control. Oh, it almost always has the caveat of if something deals damage to this, it's going to break the crowd control. And that will be the big difference between hard crowd control and stuns. The biggest difference will be you can hit things that are stunned and they'll stay stunned, and stuns also don't last very long. So they're only going to last, maybe a second or two. Whereas hard crowd controls might last upwards of like 10 to 30 seconds. I mean, because you have to remember this is going to be a game that um, is the action adventure style. So you don't need crowd control upwards of like the 5-10 minutes that you need in EverQuest or World of Warcraft or whatever. So we can keep numbers low all around the board to make the game move smoother and make gear um, more valuable. And then they'll do most of their stuff through enchantments and illusions. And then I was thinking that a high level harpy, if you've been looking at the picture that I've put up here with this, that's what a high level harpy should look like. Is, you know, all fancy looking, bedecked in maybe not completely useful armor, but definitely ornate armor. Um, if in armor at all. Like a harpy in armor might be something that other people that they're playing with kind of go, why aren't you wearing armor? You're a harpy. Like that severely restricts your movement. Like all you can attack with is your claws. Like what? That doesn't give you any. You know, armor wouldn't give them any bonus to their cat magic abilities, stuff like that. Okay, so I'm trying to think if there is anything that I left out of this overview. So maybe not overview idea, but over overall. There we go. Or overarching. Let's see. We've got the playable characters laid out. The idea that it takes place on an island. Um, the styles of game that we want to mix together here, and I guess at the bottom, and then um, the overall themes and jobs of the classes we have written down as well. Um, and then I guess just maybe not mission statement, but we will put some guiding principles at the bottom here. And those guiding principles will be keep numbers small, upgrades should make an impact. This way we don't have the classic problem of as you level up, you just, the difference between a level 1 and a level, you know, 20 or 50 or whatever it is, if we have levels at all. Because I kind of don't think that we need levels. I think character progression can be done in a more old school RPG manner, which I think, which we will talk about in the next video or in the next live stream. So keep numbers small. Upgrades should make an impact, so we don't have a bunch of little piecemeal upgrades that eventually end up with you being able to just completely one-shot things that have no recourse of actually putting up a fight against you. Da, da. Skill progression. Okay, no. How to put this? Skill progression shouldn't be tied directly to. Here we go. Because skill, I feel, is you playing your character. Ability progression shouldn't be tied directly to... No, that's not what I want. Hmm. Let's say a statement and then work on the statement until it makes sense for us and not worry about writing anything down for the moment. Your ability to play the game shouldn't be tied directly to the amount of time that you've put into it. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Ability to play the game. Um, Primarily thinking on a like multiplayer server, which I would like to do. I would love to be able to add to that's the whole idea of this actually is make it so that you can actually play a game like this um, with friends over like a local server or something. Um, your ability to tag along with your friends should not depend on a character level. So the challenge here is making a brand new character still have an impact in a game where there are higher level characters. So how do we craft that statement to be a guiding principle? Character level should not be an impediment to playing with friends. There we go. That's a statement we can work with. Character level should not be an impediment to playing with friends. There we go. That's a statement that we can use as a guiding principle. Um, this will tie into skill and skill progression and item upgrades. The hmm, the big thing I think that we're gonna end up doing when we work on this is we're gonna be looking at powered by the apocalypse type games, specifically Dungeon World, along with Fate, because a brand new character in Fate can have just as much of an impact as an old experienced character, from what I've seen. That may be different. I've never been in a sustained Fate campaign, but I've looked over the system a couple times and run a few one shots. So it doesn't seem like in the long run your skills just getting better and you getting um, new stunts that you're allowed to do in Fate don't seem to actively um, push out other players' abilities to make a impact on the game being played. Because that's ultimately what we want to do here. If we're making a multiplayer game, we want to make sure that people can play with friends and not have to worry about stupid things like level difference and um, item gain and whatnot. That will be definitely that will be the cool thing to do. Um, we don't want to completely um, we don't want to completely get rid of item upgrades. Uh, we don't want to completely get rid of all leveling mechanics, but we want to see if we can take leveling mechanics and displace those into other forms of progression. The traditional leveling mechanics into other forms of progression. And I had a thought for one more guiding principle, and I think this is distinct enough from keep numbers small. Um, that should go on here, and I think that should be that grinding is not. What is grinding not? Grinding should not be the point. Um, Endless grinding shouldn't be the point. Should be playing because you're having fun. Should be playing because there's content ahead. We want to have a definite end to this game. We don't want it to be like Diablo, where you get to the end of the story mode, and now you're in adventure mode, and you just endlessly grind Greater Rifts. Don't get me wrong, we can add a Greater Rifts-esque uh, dungeon delve here, but that shouldn't be the point of the game. There should be an option. The point of the game should be getting to the end, going through this crazy adventure and ending with and being able to end it. Um, Going back to specific places for specific items, trying out new play styles, stuff like that. That should be the hmm, hmm, how to word that statement. Should I even finish that statement? Should I pull it back? There's a lot of thoughts there. Some are contradictory. I think we need to find the space between all of the contradictory thoughts between grinding, full grind, and definite end, restart the game, new game plus type thing, to a a game that you continue playing, like um, Enter the Gungeon, stuff like that. Uh, but I think the thing that we can get is that grinding's not the point, and that grinding, and as a little caveat here, grinding is not fun. Grinding can be fun, but grinding is not in and of itself. Grinding is not in and of itself fun. There we go. There we go. So we have our overarching idea. We have our playable characters. Then we have our guiding principles. I think this is a very extremely workable place to start with. It's narrow enough. It's got enough written here for us to take this and develop things from it, following the ideas that we've been given um, in these guiding principles. But it's not so narrow that we can't have fun or discover things along the way of designing this. Um, so this is not the first ARPG I've been thinking about or have designed. I've previously designed one called Knoll Quest, which is very similar to this. I think we're going to be taking some enemy types and ideas from Knoll Quest, which was ultimately a story, a very basic, poorly written story of a battle between two Knoll gods um, fighting it out over who should rule the Knolls and their effects uh, down on the world, to applying a bit more of a class-based approach to everything, and broadening out the world, deepening the world, and then making it so that we pull well developed ideas from the past and develop um, ideas going forward. So thank you very much for watching this first stream. Sorry if it seemed like I was going a little crazy. It's extremely hot in here, and I turned off my fan so that it wasn't constantly blowing into the mic. So I might have fried my brain. I'm gonna go take a nice deep sip of cold water and turn my fan back on. So you all have a great evening or day, wherever time you're watching this. And I will see you all next Saturday, probably between, I'm going to say 10 in the morning, which might be a little early, to noon Eastern Standard Time. Because that's the best time for me. I will update as follows. The next live stream that I'm going to do will be tomorrow. And that will be talking about a different um, a different project that I also want to make progress on, and have felt that it's stagnated. Um, so thank you very much for watching. You have a great night.